in high definition from KGMB and KHNL. This is your source for breaking news in the morning. Hawaii News Now Sunrise.
It's 6 o'clock. Breaking news. 2 helicopters from Marine Corps Base Kaneohe have crashed into the ocean just off the North Shore. 12 people were on board and are still missing. Some debris has been found, but so far, again, as we mentioned, no signs of survivors. We hope to have that soon. The debris field was said to be offshore of Haleiwa and is expanding. We have team coverage from the North Shore. Ramsey has been on the phone since midnight gathering information. Dan is also out there, but let's check in first with Grace Lee.
Well, Steve, as we have been talking about all morning, the conditions couldn't be worse for a search effort today with these 2 helicopters that have crashed just a little bit offshore from here at Haleiwa Beach Park. Now, I don't know if you can see this blue light just off my shoulder. That is where Honolulu Police as well as Honolulu Fire have staged. And we've been seeing multiple aircraft take off from this area to join in this search effort. Now, there are multiple agencies involved, so many people who want to find these 12 survivors, and those include not only the Coast Guard from the air and from the boat, but also the Navy. The Marine Corps has sent out at least 2 helicopters that I know of. And then the Honolulu Fire and Police, of course, have also launched their own choppers. Now, we have been reporting also that not only was the debris found, but what has been somewhat disconcerting a find is a lifeboat that was found near the crash site that had no survivors in sight. Now, Ramsey has been gathering information for us throughout the morning, and she joins us with the latest on this search effort because, Ramsey, you know, we've been talking to different officials. Not only are we looking at this big surf, dark conditions, but also the current spreading everything out as the search goes on for longer. So this is a very difficult thing for them to deal with today.
That's right, it certainly is, and that's why those initial minutes of response are so critical. I'm just looking up in the sky. You can hear above us another helicopter. I can't identify it. It's just too dark for me. Sometimes we can identify the Coast Guard chopper because of that bright orange, the Dolphin chopper. We know the C-130 Hercules from Barbers is also out there, and as soon as the Coast Guard identified what was going on, again, initially the reports were that this may have been some kind of a flare incident, but it was the verbiage of one caller this morning who said he heard aircraft, then saw a fireball that may have assisted those Coast Guard officials down at the Joint Rescue Coordination Center to put those calls out to the military areas and bases and try to figure out who may have been flying. And that's subsequently when they learned that these 2 Sea Stallions with Marine Corps Base Hawaii, they're attached to the heavy helicopter squadron that we know 463. That was identified by Marine Corps officials earlier this morning, and those members of the Marine Corps family here, all over, in fact, and their families are doing a lot of prayers. A lot of thoughts are going out to them that these 12 members on board, and again, we're still waiting to find out if they're all Marines or perhaps even some sailors. Sometimes the corpsmen will travel with the Marines as well, so we're still waiting to confirm just which service members are on these aircraft. But nonetheless, anytime these type of tragic crashes occur, it is the moments after that can make such a difference. And again, no sign of the survivors. As Grace mentioned, finding that life raft just sort of floating is how it was identified to me, with nobody inside, and not a good sign. Just kind of your heart sinks at that. But you have all of this debris floating out there. You have a lot of, I'm told, the fuel from the aircraft in the air. And we had just learned within the hour that a message going out by authorities that because of the surf conditions, the currents, should there be any debris that washes along the shoreline, and remember, that search parameter was about 11 miles along the coastline, that this could wash up. Do not touch it. Contact 911, call police, let them know what's going on. And again, we're going to be here throughout the morning, throughout the day, touching base with everybody that's been impacted by this to see where this search and rescue leads us, and obviously to find out what went wrong. But Marine Forces Pacific, Dan, will take this official lead, and we'll have to hear from them as the surf conditions, as you mentioned, Dan, continue to grow. I'm not sure exactly how this thing is gonna play out today. Dan?
Well, I can tell you for sure that whether it's the Coast Guard or the Marines or whoever is trying to plot out a search area, it is a complicated math problem because there are multiple things impacting that. One is the huge swell that we've been talking about all week, expected to peak later on today. That is going to have some impact on the movement of survivors and debris. The other would be the currents that are occurring under the ocean. And then there are the winds. Right now, light and variable, but as a front comes through later this morning, the winds will shift to north-northeasterly. That's going to have an impact.
7:20 right now. Let's check back in with Grace Lee in Haleiwa. Hey, Grace.
Hey, Steve, there are definitely renewed efforts here for this search. And with the daylight coming up, the sun coming up, we can see a lot better. And just recently, I think Dan was showing you that we see a Navy ship just offshore here of Haleiwa Beach Park involved in these search efforts. Now, we've also been hearing a lot more aircraft. We just saw a Coast Guard helicopter head just north of here to join in those search efforts. Now, we have been hearing multiple reports that there was a loud bang around 11:30 last night here in the Haleiwa area. One resident is here checking out the surf, but J.K. Hanoa has grown up here.
Yeah.
Now, tell me what you normally hear and what you were hearing last night.
Once in a while, we hear the helicopters flying over. It's really loud.
And that's what you were hearing last night too, right?
Yeah, it was nothing different except around 11:30, I heard the big explosion. Boom! I thought they were practicing up at Schofield, but it was a little different. And then I heard another one shortly after, kind of spontaneous, boom! And then another boom!
Now, you said that the explosion was so loud that it actually shook your house?
Yeah. I tried to figure if it was thunder, the practicing at Schofield, or even an earthquake. I couldn't figure it out, but yeah, it was definitely a loud explosion.
So something you would definitely note despite the normal noise that you would hear from different military operations.
Yeah, it stood out.
All right.
Yeah.
J.K. Hanoa, thank you for joining us today just to give us kind of what your experience was in this area. And that is consistent from what we've been hearing from other residents who also reported. And just keep in mind that this investigation was actually started because one resident did hear that loud explosion and then called in to 911, and the Coast Guard has been investigating ever since. But so far, as we have seen, multiple aircraft, whether it's from local firefighters, the police, the Navy, the Coast Guard, all of them searching. And what's interesting to note is that they seem to actually be focusing on this area just off this beach park as we speak. There have been so many different aircraft. Also, on an interesting note, we've been noting a lot more residents coming here to not only look at the situation, but also some people who are on jet skis in the area who are looking at this scene as well. But as a reminder, if you come in contact with if you see any debris, I should say, do not touch it. Make sure to call the proper authorities and alert them to this, because as these weather conditions change throughout the day, they believe that some of this debris may be washing up onto the shore as we expect that large surf to get even bigger, up to 40 feet later today. We will continue to follow this story, this breaking news story. Stay with us here on Sunrise.
It's 8 o'clock and the search for survivors is still underway in dangerous ocean conditions off Haleiwa. Take a look right there. 2 helicopters from Marine Corps Base Hawaii crashed late last night. So far, no sign of the 12 people who were on board. And now the surf is building. Wave heights are expected to peak at about 40 feet on the North Shore today. Any minute now, we're expecting a press conference from the Pentagon to discuss the crash. We're going to bring that to you live as soon as it happens. Right now, though, we do have team coverage. Let's check in with Grace Lee, who is anchoring that coverage from Haleiwa. Hey, Grace.
Well, Steve, as you just saw in that live shot of the weather, the surf has been rising throughout the morning, just as the National Weather Service had predicted. And they're expecting really big surf in this area, and that's hampering the efforts. We heard from a Coast Guard official earlier who said that because of this large surf and because of the lack of visibility in this area, they said that the search effort has been very daunting. We did confirm with Marine Corps officials that there were 2 Super Stallion helicopters involved in this crash. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this type of aircraft, they are very large. They are cargo helicopters, and they can carry as many as 55 people. Now, the Coast Guard earlier told us that there were 6 people on each of those aircraft. So far, no sign of them, but we do know that earlier this morning, during the very dark hours, not only in the debris field, they did spot a live boat. Unfortunately, no one was inside. from residents, they have been reporting that they heard the training exercise going on around 10 o'clock last night. We had multiple reports from residents who said they heard a very loud explosion. One resident that we spoke with earlier said he actually heard 2 separate explosions, and then his house shook. He lives just off of Haleiwa Beach Park, so you can imagine just how large that explosion must have been at this time. Now, Ramsey has been covering this as well, and she joins us for more on this search effort. Ramsey.
Yeah, very solemn mood here as officials representing all the different agencies involved in the search have gathered to monitor the search efforts here from Haleiwa, Ali'i Beach Park. Members of the Coast Guard, of course, Honolulu Fire Department, Honolulu Police Department, and of course, their brethren Marines with the support detachment for Air Group 24, of course, the main unit out of Marine Corps Base Hawaii, and for the friends and family being provided some comfort over at Marine Corps Base Hawaii. We certainly send our prayers and thoughts with them today. We know that they were attached, the 2 aircraft that went down offshore around 10:30 last night here off Oahu's North Shore, were with the Pegasus Squadron, also known as the Marine Heavy Helicopter Squadron 463. They were the only unit that had the Super Stallions with the 1st Air Wing here at Marine Corps Base Hawaii. We know that officials there indicated that all Marines were aboard, no sailors to tell you about. Sometimes Navy corpsmen will be on board. We're also standing by, as you know, for a very big press conference to come out of the Pentagon with defense officials, and we're going to hear more potentially about how they're going to handle the aircraft investigation while they continue the ongoing search and rescue. We know it's been ramped up. You heard the destroyers steaming towards this area. We're checking to see which one is the one on scene, whether it's the Gridley or the USS John Paul Jones. I also was able to touch base with the NTSB in Washington just to get a sense of the unfolding of this, and the NTSB will not take any effort to investigate or lead that. Everything in military incidents will be handled by the military. However, should the Marine Corps at any point in time, or the Navy, decide that they want some expertise or some additional help, they can certainly request that, and the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board officials, would certainly help out and assist in that. So we'll wait and see what the officials out of Washington have to say about how they'll proceed here. But again, still searching for 12 survivors. That's what we want to find. Marines on board, Dan, these Super Stallions, and the search, the helicopters just keep going and the runs, and we see the ships in the distance. Fingers crossed out there that some good news will come out of this search. Dan?
Yeah, the search, as Ramsey said, continuing from the air, from the sea. We've got multiple branches in the military, the Coast Guard, the Honolulu Fire Department. Ocean Safety is now on the scene with skis that they are launching to assist. There have been a number of private individuals who have shown up here, as they normally would on a big surf day, to do some tow-ins out at Himalayas or at Hammerheads, a couple of breaks where they do tow-in surfing here. And they have set that aside and have moved out into the ocean swell to assist in the surf. But it's search. But it's very difficult in this surf and in this condition to see anything. If we can kind of take a look at some of the shots that we have, live look at the big waves, the energy that's in the ocean from this very large northwest swell that is coming our direction. Out in the open ocean, that is manifesting as swells more than 10 feet at this moment, and expected by afternoon to be closer to 20 feet. That's open ocean swells. And then along the coastline, it's big surf. And as we've mentioned throughout the last couple of days, the expectation is that North Shores will be at 40 feet today. There's some concern about debris washing up in these big waves along the coastline, and they have asked that if you do see any debris, to not touch it. It could be toxic, it could be dangerous. Don't move it, but please call the following number, 808-535-3333. That's 808-535-3333. Make that call and let them know that you have spotted some debris. Let them know where it is so they can come and take a look. The search continues in earnest with every available asset, private, military, city and county. Everybody is out here looking and hoping that we're going to be able to find some survivors from the 12 that were on board those 2 helicopters that crashed last night.
And when you talk about the assets, we're talking about high tech as well. We heard from a Coast Guard official who said that they were using night vision earlier today to try to spot any sign of survivors. And then they also mentioned